Great. So let's just jump in, guys. Welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone, to the Actors Fund's Wednesday Forum, Recruitment Trends Amid COVID-19. Our goal with these forums is to feature guest speakers who are experts in their fields to share their knowledge on a range of work and financial management strategies. We also hope through these forums to provide connection and community to help you navigate the multitude of challenges brought on by COVID-19. My name is Alexandra Belavan, and I am the Program Manager of the Career Center's Eastern Region at the Actors Fund. My team and I would like to thank each of you who have logged on for taking time out of your day to join us for this important conversation. As many of you know, our mission here at the Fund is to foster stability and resiliency by providing a safety net for performing arts and entertainment professionals over your lifespan. If there are people joining us today who are in need of financial assistance, please visit our website, www.actorsfund.org, to learn how you can apply for financial support via our online portal. Our entire staff is working diligently to review and respond to each of your requests as quickly as possible. And with all of that being said, I am so excited for this panel today. And today we are so privileged to have a panel of experts who will help us understand the impact COVID-19 is having on the world of work. My team and I have been continuously working to understand the breadth and scope of this new economic reality in order to best support all of you in getting through it. What we know now is that more than 30 million individuals across this country are out of work and have filed for unemployment. And given the delays and backlogs, the actual number of jobs lost is higher. Our guests today will help us understand how employers are adjusting their hiring practices and what job seekers might expect from employers during and post the pandemic. So I'm really excited that you guys are here today. This is a company that is near and dear to my heart. I'm excited to introduce all of our panelists from Beacon Hill Staffing, one of the world's largest and most influential providers of talent acquisition, workforce consulting, and staffing solutions. Today we have 12 professionals representing several cities from the Eastern, Central, and Western regions, and I think that's such an exciting thing. It certainly excited me that they were able to provide us with so many amazing professionals from across the country. So it's definitely going to be a diverse conversation for today, for sure. So our first presenter actually, and is a dear colleague of mine, it's Ariana Wiley, Senior Managing Consultant from New York City. And I just want to say that Ariana has been volunteering her time for the Career Center's Eastern region for a few years now, offering seminars to clients of the Actors Fund related to best practices when working with a recruiter. And before we dive into the presentation, our wonderful speakers have prepared for us today. I'm going to ask Ariana to lead the team to introduce themselves for the audience, and please include your city that you're from. So Ariana, if you want to unmute your mic and you want to guide your team the way that you organized it to introduce themselves, and then we could dive right into the presentation. Okay. Unmuting. Hi.
Okay.
Great.
Hi. Thanks everyone for joining and for my team for being involved on the panel. As Alex said, I've worked with the Actors Fund for a couple of years now, and I've really enjoyed supporting the community of entertainment professionals, and excited to have the opportunity today to continue to do so and to help in any way that we can. As Alex said, I work on the Eastern Coast in New York City, and I have been with Beacon Hill for over 9 years now, staffing for administrative support roles on the permanent side. And then I'll pass it off to my colleague Mary Grimm to introduce herself.
I'm actually going to unmute you guys, all of you. So panelists, if you'd like to unmute yourselves so that you could introduce yourselves. I'm already
Great, now we are good to go.
Yeah,
we're good to go now. I wasn't able to before, so apologies. But I am Mary Graham, and I actually work in the same office that Ariana Welly does. So I work in the New York City office on the Eastern region at Beacon Hill. I specialize in the placement of temporary and temp to perm administrative professionals. So I work with a lot of creatives and entertainers just to help with temporary and then temp to perm work. Now I think next is Shannon.
Hi guys. I'm Shannon. I am a senior managing consultant in the Boston office. So similarly to Mary, I work on the temp and temp to hire and for administrative professionals as well. So anything from customer service, data entry, admin, marketing, kind of a hodgepodge, overall generalist type of approach. But I work on the temp side. And I'm passing it off to Brianna next.
Hey guys. So I work out of our DC office. I work as a senior staffing consultant here. I've been with Beacon Hill for about 3 years now. And like Mary and Shannon, I also place administrative roles on the temporary and the temp to hire side of things. And I think up next is Angela. Sorry, did you guys get that?
No.
No. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry. I'll repeat myself. My name's Brianna. I work out of the DC office. I've been with Beacon Hill for about 3 years now. I also place temporary and temp to hire administrative roles here in the DC market. And I think up next is Angela Wiley from Atlanta.
Hey guys, I'm Angela Wiley. I'm a senior staffing consultant for the Atlanta office, and I've been in the Atlanta market for 25 years, recruiting for predominantly focusing on administrative, HR, customer service, office support. Also do temporary and temp to hire type opportunities.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary. I'm in our Chicago office. Similar to a couple people that have talked before, I focus on temporary and temp to hire administrative placements. And I've been with Beacon Hill for about 5.5 years now. And then I'm gonna pass along to Casey, who's also in Chicago with me.
Hi, everyone. So I work with Mary in Chicago, also on administrative and HR opportunities. I just work on the direct hire side of things. And I will pass it to Kate in Cleveland.
Hi, I'm Kate. And similar to my colleagues in Chicago, I focus on administrative staffing, specifically temp and temp to hire. And additionally, we also staff a lot of accounting roles and logistics that are in that realm. And I will pass it over to
There we go. Hey, this is Kevin. I'm with Beacon Hill Associates over in Cleveland. I work with my good friend Kate, and we specialize in anything administrative. I've been recruiting for 6 years. The last year or so with Beacon Hill. Love what I do. Very excited to be here with you guys. And next up, I have Karis Quintero.
Hi guys, I'm Karis. I'm in our Austin Associates office. I staff for administrative professionals as well. We do a lot of marketing, human resources, and even finance roles on both the temporary and permanent placements here in Austin. I believe Alyssa's up next.
Hey everyone. I work out of our Orange County Irvine offices in California, and I am part of Beacon Hill Technologies, the IT division of temporary placements. So temp and temp to hire as well. Nice to meet you all. Passing it off to Jessica, who's also on my team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica from the Orange County office. I am the recruiting manager here in the local market, and we specialize in IT resources for temporary and temp to hire. Nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. So I think that was all the introductions for our panel. If you wanted to do any sort of Zoom housekeeping, Alex.
Oh, yes, please. I do just want to say one thing. Panelists, you have been given co-hosting permission, so now you absolutely will be able to unmute yourselves and keep yourselves muted. Before it was only allowing me to unmute you, so you should be able to unmute yourself. For those of you that are in the room right now, there's almost 300 of you in here. It's so exciting. So just a couple of housekeeping rules. No, you cannot turn your cameras on, and know that you cannot unmute yourself. This is really just view only. You can, however, engage with us by using the chat box. There's actually staff members from the Actors Fund that are in the chat box that are there to help provide you with any feedback or any links to anything that you need. So that's where they're going to be helpful in the chat box. So feel free to use the chat box for networking and commentary. And also, if you would like to ask a specific question, find the Q&A block at the bottom. So if you find the Q&A block at the bottom, you'll be able to click on that and you'll be able to ask a question. And while the presenters are putting the presentation in progress, they will also be taking a look at the Q&A block, and they will be responding to some of your questions if it's applicable. But I will also be saving some questions, so at the end we will do the Q&A. So please remember that if you have a question, to use the Q&A block to ask it. We will not be able to keep track of questions in the chat bubble. All right. So with all that being said, Ariana, I'm going to let you take it away and share your screen and get going with the presentation.
All right, awesome. Bear with me as I do this.
Sure.
Okay. Great. Can everyone see? Does that work, Alex?
Yep, it works for me.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So today, we are going to be talking about strategies to job searching in this market, this COVID-19 market, and also how to still work with staffing agencies and recruiters throughout all of this. So is now a good time to look for a new job? I would say there's really no bad time to look for a new position, even during COVID. You still want to keep your eyes and ears peeled for the right opportunities.
Great. And now for the next question or bullet. If a company is willing to interview and onboard in this current market, they're likely doing well and are stable. And something to remember is there are companies right now who are continuing to interview and onboard. Depending on where you are, it may have shifted slightly. I can speak to New York just because we are a little bit more reserved in terms of the shutdown. Obviously, right now, our offices are all completely closed, but a trend that I've seen is that there are companies who are starting with Zoom interviews with the hopes of in June or July being able to meet people in person. So they're still continuing the process. They're a little bit fewer and further between, but it's certainly, worth it to continue applying to those companies.
Yeah. And adding on to what Mary mentioned, I've seen similar things in addition to waiting to maybe finish a last round in person. We do have companies that have put offers out to people during this time and have figured out ways to remotely onboard and train through platforms like Zoom, like we're on right now. And they've been able to do things like ship computers to a new hire to get their desk all set up and help with the login. And as well, a lot of companies are finishing an interview process remotely and then having someone's start date to determine. So they're still making an offer to someone, but having it kind of be open-ended and depending on when an office can open back up. Another thing is if a job out there that you've been looking for is posted and available, why not apply? There's no better time for it, I would say, because you have the time to interview. You don't have to worry about if you are working, sneaking out, things along those lines. So it is still a great opportunity to still be applying to.
Absolutely. And there may be less competition in the job market right now since others have put their job search on hold. So be sure to capitalize. So as we all Beacon Hill employees have been working from home and reconnecting with former candidates, a big phrase that I've heard people say is, I'm just going to wait until we get through this. I would highly recommend if you ever hear anybody saying that sentence, to actually be sure that they're looking for jobs right now, because I do think it's going to be those people who are applying right now that are getting calls and already starting the process versus being a couple of weeks or months behind, perhaps down the line.
Great. Okay. Awesome. And Shannon and Brianna are going to take the next slide.
Yeah. So I think something important to consider, when you're working with a staffing firm, working with a recruiter is, being a little bit more flexible on the requirements on your job search. Once quarantine opens, the restaurant industry, the catering, the hospitality, those industries might be a little bit slower in getting back to normal. So I think it's better to, be a little bit more open-minded so you can take a little bit of a different approach. One thing that I always like to touch on, especially on the temporary side of things, those temporary roles have a tendency to move a little bit faster than the traditional job market. So, it is feasible that you could be doing temporary work, whether it's in an administrative capacity or, something more even data focused, while you're looking for that dream job. And I've had candidates, I think, with staffing firms, they can introduce you to companies that maybe you wouldn't have considered before. I've had candidates who, have been interested, really had been very directed in one way towards their job search. And, they've been hearing about other positions and they've ended up finding something that they've absolutely loved without, because they were a little bit more open-minded.
Yeah, definitely. This slide actually hits home for me because I went to Emerson and I did film while I was in school, and I graduated in 2009, right when the recession hit, and work was super hard. So I, had to kind of be flexible and be creative on what I was looking for. And I went to Beacon Hill to temp. So I think looking for other value adds outside of, is this position exactly what I'm looking for? Is this the dream job? Is it the perfect pay? I think finding ways to make the most out of your search, and are there transferable skill sets? A lot of employers look for customer service and hospitality. People who have those on their resume just showcases a lot of really, really bodes well for what this candidate could end up being. So I think realizing that, and then just being flexible overall, and trying to find other, like, is this position going to give you an opportunity to network? Like, are there other value adds that the role has besides just compensation? And is this the dream gig? And then specifically, like, can you be more flexible on the type of role you're applying to? Potentially being more open regarding compensation, making the focus more on the skills that you might learn in an opportunity, just being creative about what the role could offer you after you've done some research on the company and what other people are saying about it. And then I think just the demonstration that you want to keep your skills fresh in this time, I think signals something really positive to employers. So aside from nailing the perfect role right now, I think a lot of it is just about attitude and wanting to stay busy, diversify your skill set, and this all comes across really well to employers, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to that point as well, I think having something on your resume, when you're in an interview, even if it's not your dream job, having something that's on there that is a talking point where you can be, showcasing skills that you've learned or something like that, I think definitely shows initiative. But one thing I always want to, touch on as well, being flexible on your requirements is important, but, our job is not to push candidates into doing something they don't want to do. So, if you do turn down a role that a recruiter offers you, I think it's important to be communicative as to why specifically that role's not going to work, so they can kind of tailor your search a little bit more going forward.
Great. Thanks, guys. Sorry, one sec. It's not letting me switch the slide. Oh. Great. Okay. And then Mary and Casey are going to help with this slide.
Great. So in this section, we want to discuss a little bit about changing the language on your resume as you're applying to different types of opportunities. When you're applying to a job, it's really important to make sure you are highlighting the specific experiences you have that would line up well with that particular position. So oftentimes we find that maybe you haven't been in that exact corporate setting or space or held that title, but you have developed transferable skills. So you want to go through the job description, sort of bullet by bullet, to make sure that you are making appropriate adjustments to your resume and really highlighting what you've done that fits well with what they're looking for. So one example would be, if the role that you are applying for is looking for someone to manage an executive's calendar. Perhaps you haven't done that in the past, but maybe you have managed a rehearsal schedule for a show, or you've scheduled employees at one of your past jobs. So those types of things would be relevant experience. Another idea would be if you've been working to bring people in from out of town for an event that you're running, and you maybe scheduled their accommodations or their travel, that would be applicable to stepping into a role where you are planning travel for executives. We also, again, often see hospitality and customer service experience as being really highly sought after. So whenever you have experience sort of working face-to-face with customers, doing things like greeting them, answering calls, fielding questions, serving customer service, those sorts of experiences are great for like office coordinator, office management, or reception types of positions where, again, you're doing similar things in answering phones, greeting guests, and just providing, great customer service. So we find it really helpful to just kind of go through each job description as you're applying and making sure that your resume reflects your relevant experience. And I will let Mary take it from here.
And then kind of just in addition to that, when you are going through a job description, you're seeing things that you've done that are transferable. It's also definitely worth looking at that requirement section as well. I would say, there will be some times where a job will require a certain software. If you haven't, for example, worked within that software before, I don't think it should deter you from applying. I think one thing that you can do is, for instance, if a role is looking for someone with Salesforce experience, obviously, if you have it, you definitely want to have that on your resume, and making sure you're putting a bullet on your resume of how you've utilized it in a role, not just, used Salesforce, more of a utilize Salesforce on a daily basis to perform X, Y, and Z, and even showing like what results can kind of come from that. I would say as well, if you haven't used the software that's being required, but say you had to learn a new software in a job, and you were successful in doing that, I think that's definitely worth notating, because then it shows of, okay, maybe they haven't worked within this exact software before, but they were able to be a quick learner and figure this out on their last job, which gives them more confidence that you would be able to do it in this next position. And then I think as well, you do want the majority of your resume to focus on what you are applying to. So for example, if it is going to be going after an administrative role, making sure to highlight those bullets and make sure they are more on basically the top of your resume is important. So you kind of creating a section of your related experience first and foremost, and then maybe any other experience as well. I think it's noteworthy too if maybe you've had, either volunteer positions or, an organization that you're a part of that you've done work for that's similar. It's definitely important to put that on there as well. So, for example, say you volunteer for an organization and you're helping to plan an event for them, like an annual event that they have every year. And on the job description of the role you want to apply for, you notice that they are looking for someone who has either done that or maybe it's going to be a part of the job. That's definitely worth notating, of maybe putting a small bullet under your volunteer position to basically say that you have coordinated an event for, X, Y, and Z attendees. So I think it's definitely important to have kind of one resume that you can use with all of this, but tweak it, just make small tweaks as necessary for the positions, just as you see fit.
Great. And one addition to that, too, that I've mentioned a lot in my work with the Actors Fund is don't be afraid to create a section for your experience within the creative and entertainment spaces. A lot of companies really appreciate professionals coming from that background or that have a degree in fine arts, things along those lines. So don't hide that piece of yourself. I think there's a lot of intangible skills that you learn from that side of your life that hiring managers and corporations and organizations really, really look for. Awesome. And then Alyssa and Jessica are going to help with this slide.
Hi, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so I definitely feel like updating and keeping your LinkedIn up to date as far as matching exactly what's on your resume, and even adding in those bullets that they were talking about specifically regarding your specific experience with each individual skills that you have or each individual skills that you've learned from those specific jobs, and keeping the dates up to date as well. I think that's super helpful. Another thing that's really helpful is anytime you edit or change your resume, you want your LinkedIn to mirror it. A lot of times managers will come back to us and ask, like, why is this different from what your resume says, or why is the title different, or any of those kind of things. So keeping it consistent and keeping and just showcasing the same jobs, and as you update it, keeping your LinkedIn as up to date as possible is definitely super helpful, and it's a great way to market yourself. And I think a lot of times too, people can even download their LinkedIn allows you to download a resume to provide almost as in lieu of having to create a separate resume. So you can almost use it as one sole resume and update your LinkedIn more regularly. That way you don't have to update it in two different places. And I'll pass it off to Alyssa.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, and then also just making sure that you are highlighting on your LinkedIn that you are seeking new opportunities, creating a headline that attracts the type of role that you're seeking as well. A lot of people forget if they were in a past position, maybe they haven't updated their LinkedIn. A lot of recruiters are looking for titles that match. So just make sure that you have that updated. Another really important thing is to have a professional looking picture of yourself on LinkedIn. This is comical to say, but it is very important. You know, want it to be a reflection of your professional work as well. And then there is a section where you can add that you're open to new opportunities, and recruiters have access via LinkedIn Recruiter to filter resumes this way. So it is very important if you are actively looking to make sure that icon is clicked on, so that way recruiters can filter through your profile that way.
Great. Thanks, guys. And one thing I wanted to know on this piece too, because I've gotten the question a lot in my presentations at the Actors Fund, and I know Alex gets it frequently. You shouldn't have two separate LinkedIn profiles, like one for your professional and then one for your creative and entertainment. Combined them. Again, showcase what you have on your resume that's putting out on your LinkedIn. So you can put it in a similar layout where you're putting your entertainment and creative endeavors in one area, and then other related work to what you're seeking now in another area. But you definitely want to have one, not two, because if someone searches you, they're both going to come up anyway, and it should all be cohesive. Great. And then Kevin and Kate are going to help with this one.
All right. And so, yeah, I guess next is just, should you reach out to a recruiter? The answer to that's yes, and that's a heck yes. And there's multiple reasons. So basically, you can spend all day online applying to jobs on different job boards. Sometimes you never hear back, and that can be disheartening to the overall job search process. But when you work with a recruiter, you do have someone that can advocate and highlight your strengths and things like that. And also it diversifies how you apply to different positions. So very important to kind of, use all different avenues in order to obtain that job that you're looking for, a good long-term career opportunity, or even if it's like a temporary position right now. But some of my employees have even told me over the years that they wouldn't have found the job that they're at now without, utilizing a recruiter, because sometimes we have positions that aren't posted on every single job site. Also, most of the companies hiring right now, they're actually using recruiters to fill openings. As recruiters, our main goal is to make that match between employee and employer. For many HR departments, they have other responsibilities like day-to-day operations, whether it's benefits, employee relations, sometimes babysitting. Like, they do a little bit of everything. So, it's their sole focus isn't on hiring like ours is. So, we live for this though. And, it's important to, for us to make that match, not only to help people obtain good jobs, but also to help out our awesome clients. And we kind of, we want to help everyone out. So also we can help advocate for you directly with companies. Now, when we send over a resume, we don't just send over a resume. We've already met with you, so we like to share your personality strengths, explain anything that's not on your resume. Like if there's a work gap or anything like that, you want to make sure that we're, addressing that and, kind of explaining things that aren't easily explained on a resume without getting wordy. Also think of us as a good reference for you whenever we do send your resume to one of our companies, because we've already met with you and we already like you. So next I'll hand it off to Kate the Great and she'll take over from here.
Thanks, Kevin. So the big thing is with recruiters, we do have a direct insight on what the market looks like. So depending on where you are throughout the country, we are experiencing different things. So what I'm recruiting for in Cleveland is going to be probably very different than what is going on out in California. So connecting with someone local is going to be huge because we can tell you what industries are hiring. And then additionally, if we don't have the right position for you right now, that doesn't mean we won't in a month from now or even a few weeks. The example I always tell my candidates when we first meet is I actually met with somebody who wanted to change careers from IT completely and going into like logistics. And at the time when we met, there wasn't anything of that. And I was like, honestly, it's not going to be an easy transition, but we'll keep looking. And right after the new year, the perfect opportunity came through that highlighted his skill set, but also allowed him to break into a new industry. And that was huge because if we hadn't spoke back in the fall, that I never would have thought of him for that job. And then additionally, companies are going to call us when the market turns because we have employees who are ready to work starting pretty much tomorrow. So being able to, they can reach out to us and we can have somebody already in the seat or interviewing quicker than times internal HR can. So recruiters can definitely help speed up the process and look out for you for future endeavors.
Great. Thanks, guys. And then Karis and Angela are going to take working with a recruiter in COVID.
Yes, I feel like this number one bullet point, being honest with your recruiter, is probably like the most important, kind of like my golden rule. And it can be super hard and it can be tough to kind of like open up, especially during this time when we're all experiencing this hardship and this pandemic. But being honest about the things that you want, not only, that you're wanting and expecting a new job, but also the things that you're doubtful of, and even your concerns and hesitations. We can help silence those fears and help give experiences and examples of, success stories that we've had in the past, or, things that we're seeing in the market to help get you through this time and help work with you during all of this. So it's not just about, okay, what's going to make you excited and what's going to get you, really interested in a new role, but it's also about those doubts and those fears too, and helping express those to us.
Next, I would say definitely listen and be flexible, especially in this market. I know that candidates are really frustrated because they don't have work, but if you can just listen and be flexible with your recruiter, it goes a long way. A lot of the time, some of these contract opportunities can actually land you into a permanent opportunity. You could go in as potentially a receptionist, or you could be helping out with a short-term project. And I always tell my candidates to try to take your lunch and sit in the break room and just, without being too pushy, but just kind of get to know the people in the break room. And you never know, you may have a conversation with the VP or marketing, and before you know it, they are telling you about a new opportunity in a different department. And so I would just listen and try to be flexible as you're working with recruiter. Our number one goal is really just to help get you back into the market as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and on that too, I mean, like taking our advice, that next point there, like listening to us and our resume recommendations. We can go from very broad resume recommendations and interview tips to very specific client focus. We work with a lot of our clients on a day-to-day basis, and we get to know them and what their likes are and what they really like to see. And so we can help tailor, your resume, your interview style to, specific clients, and then also in a more broader range to help attract, more clients as well as you're out there job searching on your own too.
And then finally, again, just be patient. It's definitely, you want to stay in touch. I think it's so important, when you find a recruiter that you really like, just to stay in touch. Remember, it's about building a long-term relationship, because a lot of times we may not have something for you right now, but 2 weeks could go by and we might have the perfect opportunity, or it could be several months down the road. But I think just allowing or letting your recruiters know that you are available, and then if something changes in your skill set, to also let them know, so that we can continue to look for all different types of opportunities. And then as far as being in touch, I mean, I love email personally, but I do think it's nice to hear from my candidates. So leaving a voicemail and then following up with email is always super helpful, so that you're top of mind with your recruiter. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Angela and Karis. And to add to that piece too, what Angela was saying about the flexibility and you never know who you might meet. I've definitely had a lot of times where candidates go on an interview that they weren't 100% sure of when I ran the job by them, and then they end up working in the role for years to come. I think just like your resume is only a slight representation of you, a job description and an explanation of what a company does on their website or from the recruiter is only a small indication of them, and you never know what you might learn in an interview. It's a non-binding conversation, so you might as well take the time for, even if it's not ends up not being the right fit, you'll get the practice. And again, we all have a little bit more time on our hands now, so it never hurts, because you never know what a conversation can lead to. Great. Awesome. And then we've had some great success stories across the country of projects that we worked on recently that started during COVID, and the ability to employ people. So I'm going to let the team that were involved in those large scale projects chat a little bit about some of the success stories we've had during this time. Did someone want to talk about, I think Cleveland and Chicago, did you guys want to touch on that project you guys have been working on?
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So we actually, in Cleveland, Chicago, and actually a couple of our other offices, including Philly and Pittsburgh, have just basically had a large number of people. I want to say it was probably over about 150 contractors start in remote positions over the last basically 2 weeks or so. We're still working on some right now. We have a project going on that's getting people started next week as well. That are remote customer service opportunities. So with the client that we're working with, they, a lot of companies out there are still in need of people working in customer service positions, just given, I guess, whatever industry they're in. So we're working with a television network right now on taking inbound customer service calls regarding any app issues that they're seeing. Obviously, a lot more people are watching TV and utilizing apps now more than ever. So we have people that will be starting in those. There are several requirements for them in order to work within the system. They have to have, a certain type of computer, Windows setup, and things of that nature. But yeah, just last week, we've been able to get hundreds of people out to work remotely, which has been really exciting. And it doesn't look like we are going to see a slowdown in that. If anything, those roles are going to, keep coming in kind of nationwide, which is very exciting.
And I don't know if Kate or Kevin wanted to add to any of that.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it's still a project that's going on, so we are still hiring for it. But yeah, I mean, it's been great, being able to help out so many people during this time when a lot of places aren't hiring. So, and also just the safety of people being able to work remotely from home and not having to get out in this whole mess and everything. And, and we've recruited different states and kind of all over the place. So that's been good, just, being able to, I guess, help out so many people and in a safe way where they don't have to get out, like outside the comfort of their own home.
Awesome. And then
I'll jump in really quickly if it's okay, Ari.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in and just kind of speak to, for job seekers, if maybe you're not going through a recruiter, think about the pockets and industries that could be hiring right now. So a lot of the individuals on this call spoke to unemployment. Think about the areas that are hiring, like a telehealth. I would think about apps that people are using for telehealth that potentially could be hiring customer service representatives, or you could think about shipping and logistics. There's a lot of startups out there right now that I think are trying to get things places. So just thinking about those little pockets that could potentially be hiring, since there are other industries that might not be.
Awesome. And then I think Angela and Karis had a story. Our Atlanta team actually had a client that had a large scale project in Texas that we've been staffing for. So do you guys want to speak to that?
Yeah, so it's a financial firm that's tied to the real estate industry. So we've up to 85 contractors out working so far. We have several in Atlanta and in Texas. And the training was done virtual. The client shipped laptops to their homes, and it's been very successful. So that was great to get so many people out working.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely a really good experience to be able to work with everyone completely remotely. And honestly, these candidates would have had no idea about these roles unless like going through us, and we did the entire hiring process for the client and really helped facilitate for them and almost like take that burden off of them. They relied heavily on us during that time. So it was really nice to be able to do that for both the client as well as get a bunch of people back to work.
That's awesome. Great. And I can speak to, in New York City, we had a client come to us with 7 openings. It's a financial technology firm. So I think the beauty of that is they're in an industry that's really progressive in nature. The openings were all for executive assistants, and one actually entry-level recruiting coordinator that we helped place someone that worked in customer service into that role that had been laid off from Jet Black, actually. And so they're fully interviewing virtually, and they're putting out offers, and they have a capacity to onboard. So I think another thing to think about, like Mary was saying, or technology companies might be a great place to look right now because they're so on the forefront of working virtually, and a lot of times those companies might even have a large portion of their employees work virtually. So there might be opportunities within that space, even in a city that's at the height of all of this, like New York. Awesome. And that, I believe, closes out our presentation.
Great, that's awesome. Ariana, you could stop sharing your screen so that we could back to gallery view. Thank you guys. It was such an amazing presentation, and we have quite a few questions in the queue that are really, really good questions. But the first question that I want to start off with is, we have all this talk about technology and how that's the most in demand right now, but what about people that aren't so technology savvy? I mean, feel free to give as much information as you feel comfortable to share in regards to advice that you would give someone that doesn't have technology skills. But what advice would you give to somebody that is kind of a little bit more challenged when it comes to technology?
Mary, do you want to go?
Yeah, I can answer, and then you can always jump in. I think the best part of what's going on right now is there's a lot of platforms that are offering free classes. So I know I'm getting a lot of emails from CourseHorse, for example. I know that Harvard Business School is, having classes. Honestly, I've sent a lot of people towards YouTube before because it might be the basic things like the Microsoft Office platform that you can play with now and be prepared for down the line. I will say another positive about working with a recruiter is that we sometimes have access to systems where you can get a tutorial and perhaps a test later on. That's not for every software system, but it might be for specific ones that our clients ask for.
Great.
You hit all my points. So
Awesome. I love that. And I think that another burning question that's come up a little bit in this queue is that how does somebody even get in touch with the recruiter really? Like, what is your preference? Do you prefer to be through a referral, or do you answer cold LinkedIn messages? And I'm sure you're all kind of different. I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but how do job seekers find you?
I'll speak in Atlanta. This is I just prefer a nice business email. So, I mean, I just like somebody reaching out and saying, hi, this is so-and-so currently on the job market, just maybe 2 or 3 sentences as to what they're looking for. I typically open the resume, and then even if I can't help place that person right then, if I see a resume that maybe needs some extra help, then I'll at least call the candidate, introduce myself, and then try to help them with at least resume tips to help them be more marketable as they're looking on their own.
Great. So just simple. If you can find your email, send you an email for sure. Okay, great. That's awesome. Anybody else?
I think
it's an, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, again, email is great if you have access to someone's email address. You definitely don't have to worry about, getting an intro from someone. You can just email blindly, say, hey, got your information from whoever it might be or from my network. I would love to see if you can help me in my search, something as simple as that. In Chicago, I know we definitely just get a lot of calls into the office as well. If you're in a specific city, maybe you're going on Yelp or seeing reviews for any agencies, you can honestly just Google the main line of the number, explain what types of roles you're looking for, and the office coordinator or someone will answer the phone and be able to kind of connect with you, get your resume that way as well. So even cold calling in is completely fine too. We definitely see that a lot.
Oh, that's really refreshing to hear. Go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, thanks. One thing I was going to mention too is literally I will talk to anyone, like just by existing, I will speak to you. Like if you are calling in through a friend, cold calling into the office, sending me an email, it doesn't matter. But if you are calling in, I would say be prepared to have some sort of deliverable, whether it is your resume, a place where I can find your LinkedIn or portfolio. If you're more graphically inclined, I talk to a lot of candidates who are applying for more creative positions, and they may have their resume, but they may not have a portfolio, and that is oftentimes required for some of these positions. So just being able to follow up with something to go off of, I think is helpful. And kind of goes without saying, but you'd be surprised.
Great. Awesome. These are amazing answers. I think they're really refreshing too, because I think people are always looking for some type of magical path to being able to get into a recruiter's inbox. And it's actually just as simple as calling the main line in some cases, or, just kind of direct contact. And that's great. I have a couple questions that are really amazing in this queue. I mean, I haven't even thought of some of these, but one is, now that companies are allowing their admins to work from home, do you anticipate a fall off on temp employee needs? And at first I was like, what does that mean? But now I realize that it's quite possible that a lot of temporary roles are available because, people take off for a day or a vacation, or their kid is sick, so they have to stay home and you need to fill a role for the day. But now that a lot of admins are being able to work from home, would that eliminate a lot of temp positions? What have you guys been seeing or thinking?
Yeah, so I can speak to this a little bit. And of course, the shutdown in New York City, I can speak to that, has certainly impacted our temp openings that are coming in, especially last minute or for a couple of weeks on a time, because people are not taking vacations. And if you have a sick day, you stay home, or somebody, maybe another admin, just covers at this point. I think it's all kind of hearsay. We don't know, because we don't know what the next 4 to 6 weeks bring. I would say a couple things. I'm anticipating that, an office might need 2 receptionists instead of 1, because they need to rotate one person on one week, one person on another week. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's certainly a possibility. There's also a lot of rumblings of, is COVID-19 going to return this fall? If that happens, what you might see is that people hire contractors for the summer that they don't have to feel inclined to bring on permanently, rather go through a staffing agency to employ them. So I think it could go either way. Recruiters are feeling like we want to be prepared. So
Great. She paused.
to work as quickly as we can.
Awesome. Those are really, really great responses. You guys are so smart. That's why I love having you guys involved with us. It's great. So the next question I have here is, have you guys been seeing that employers are willing to pay for some technology services for employees such as like Wi-Fi and things like that? Like what kind of, I don't know if you guys have been seeing any of this, but have employers been reimbursing employees for these types of services?
I can take that one. I don't know if I could speak to like the internet itself, like a router or anything like that, but I certainly have been connecting with candidates that I've placed at our clients that they are providing them with a stipend or letting them expense if they're setting up an at-home office for an extra computer screen or a desk chair or something like that. I even heard that one client was like giving money to people to get exercise equipment so they could stay healthy at home. So I think certainly companies are trying to do what they can. I also do think, like Mary was saying, they might be anticipating that when we can go back to work, there might be some sort of rotation. So they're willing to invest the money now for someone to create an at-home office so they can continue to be productive when maybe they're having 50% of the staff in the office and 50% out. So yeah, I think that companies, if you're a really talented and qualified candidate for their role, would be willing to help create like an area where you can, or expense things that you can be successful in doing the job from a remote capacity. Yeah.
Awesome. And I mean, adding on to that, you're saying somebody who's, you know, talented and really competitive for the role. You know, we have a lot of people on this call today that are from the entertainment community. A lot of them are performers. A lot of them are also working on the back end of theater productions and film productions. And, you know, I think that everybody is always curious to know what is a recruiter thinking when they see my resume and see that I have performance experience. And I guess also, if it's not a bad thing to have that you're a performer, I guess that's the first question. The first question is it a bad thing for me to have my creative work on here? And if it's not, what's the appropriate way? How should I be framing my resume? Is there a separate entertainment section? Is it just part of the reverse chronological of your resume? Like, what would you guys tell someone from the creative industry to improve their resume to be attractive for a temp role or a full-time administrative role? What would that advice look like for a creative? No, it's a tough question.
I mean, I can talk a little bit about in terms of resumes. I don't think somebody has to hide the fact that they were an actor. Plus, like, we all have Google, right? And many times clients will Google someone and they don't want to feel lied to that somebody didn't bring it up in an interview. I think there's a way, if say you were an actor or a creative professional or an entertainer for 10 years, but you're no longer doing that, you could put it on your resume and say, you know, 2007 to 2019. You wouldn't have to necessarily list every contract that you had, but you could put it all together. And then on top of that, you could put your more applicable experience, perhaps for the role. I think it all depends too on the type of job that you're applying for. I will say I specialize on the administrative side of things, so I can speak more to those, but I think that those positions are 50% skill set, and they're also 50% like personality based and soft skills. So I have found generally that creative and entertainment professionals tend to have a level of flexibility that is uncanny. It's amazing. They can adapt in almost any situation. They can make somebody feel so, so important. Think about how transferable that would be for a reception role. So what I would urge anybody to do who's job searching right now is really break down each one of those roles and write down like what you did day to day in those positions. And then when you're looking at the job description, like we talked about on the slides earlier, figure out what exactly you want to put underneath that role specifically.
Great. Anybody?
And to add to that, Alex, too, just about like, you know, I think it's good to showcase it. There are many times when a company tells us they want someone that has that creative entertainment experience in their past. The company that I mentioned has 7 openings in New York. They tend to lean towards hiring people that studied or had a past career within the entertainment creative space. Like another candidate that I have interviewing with them currently is a music composer and did that as a part of his life while doing administrative work as his day job. And so a lot of companies really value that, and it's actually a value add in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I agree. Just to go off of what Ariana just said too, like, I think it's really important to kind of tell your recruiter exactly like what we're looking for here, because I think in certain situations you're going to really play up that performing aspect or that part of your background, and other ways you're going to try to find a way to have it sit on your resume where it may be a little more subtle. So I think if you're part-time, or if you're looking for a part-time position while you're seeking roles on the side, that's going to be one specific conversation. But then if you're looking for a full-time position where you want to utilize all of your performing arts ability, but you're looking for something else, that's a whole other conversation. I've worked with finance firms where they look for people with top tier, like, hospitality experience, or I worked with a candidate who was an opera singer who ended up working as an executive assistant at a financial services firm because they wanted that sort of the way she carried herself and how she interacted with people. So it kind of depends. But I think building that relationship with your recruiter and telling them what you're looking for in the end is really important.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on this too. I mean, and Ariana has mentioned this in the classes that she's given at my location, but how many recruiters is too much? Like, are you allowed to have more than one? I think that's another question that a lot of our clients have too.
Yeah, definitely. I would say you can absolutely have more than one recruiter. Just be honest and transparent with all your recruiters of the activity that you have going on through other recruiters. It's a question that I ask pretty much every single time that I talk to someone and get an update on their job search. So I think we just ask that you be transparent. I would also say you don't want to be working with like 15 recruiters, because that can be a little bit overwhelming. You want to create a nice relationship with your recruiter and build that trust, and few recruiter you are really feeling connected to and trust in your search, and then just to be transparent about everything that you have going on between the two on your own or through your own network. That's okay as well. We're just here to be an additional resource along with other things that you have access to, and again, it's just keeping us updated and in the loop, and being honest, like we mentioned in the presentation. We're not expecting every job that we have for you to be your favorite job. You might have other things that you're more excited about, and it's okay. Just give us the full truth so we can navigate the communication with the companies on our end, and we would do it appropriately without jeopardizing the opportunity.
Great, awesome. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit because I think this is important, but families that have children and schools being closed and companies that might want to hire in person soon, how is one that's a parent supposed to navigate, especially in New York City? I don't know about anybody anywhere else, but New York City and New Jersey, the schools are closed for the rest of the year. I mean, like, there's not much left of the year, but I think that's a question that a lot of parents are concerned about. What do I do as a parent when I have a child that can't go back to school and I might have to go back to the office in person? What has that conversation been looking like?
I'll chime in on that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that each company is being very flexible as things progress. Honestly, I think everyone's in the same boat of taking it day by day. We have had, interviews be rescheduled due to children, having the children at home and not having a babysitter to like set that time aside to be able to take, an hour to 2 hour long interview. And then start dates being pushed as well, so that way they can have the necessary supervision for their children. So I think honestly, it's just client to client is being very, very flexible at this time, which we're being very appreciative. But again, with going back to the being transparent and being honest in your situation, I think is very important, because last thing we want is, hearing about something later on that we can't fix. So being upfront and honest and having us come up with a solution prior to accepting the offer is very, very important. So I think right now there's not really like a straight answer, because things are changing every day. But from our experience working with our clients, they have been exceptionally flexible with this.
Great. That's good to hear. I assume that too, because a lot of these employers themselves have children. So they're kind of like in the same boat too. So that's another thought for you all to think about too. It's not just you that has the daycare issue. It's definitely a lot of people, employers included. I love that. Switching gears again, there's actually a couple of questions in here because we have quite a few performers that are only familiar with their performance resumes, which is like one page on Word, and it's basically just listing what their role was and what project it was, whereas obviously we know that a non-entertainment resume looks very different. And there's a couple questions here about how far back do I go, and is 2 pages too much? Is that rule still a thing? So I think that addressing those 2 questions would be really, really wonderful. So how far back, and adding to how far back, if there is experience that one has that's more than 20 years old, how does one incorporate that into their application? Because I think that a lot of our performers too have this issue of, I worked in one industry and then I was performing for 10 years and now I want to go back into that industry that I had 10 years ago, but my experience has a gap in it, but I did it, right? So how does one kind of address that issue on their resume? And yeah, is 2 pages truly the devil? I don't think that 2 pages is a big deal anymore as it used to be, but you guys could definitely give your opinions on that as well. So yeah, who wants to go first?
I can touch on the 2 pages part. So I would much rather, as a recruiter, see a resume that's formatted nicely that takes up a couple pages versus people trying to cram everything on 1 page on size 8 font, because hiring managers can't look at it easily. So, and also too, once you've been working for a while, you're going to have a higher skill set and put in certain systems that you've used, and it's going to take up more than 1 page than when you first start like right out of school or just starting that career, versus 10 years down the line. It's going to be a lot more, I think, easier for everybody for it to go onto a 2nd page.
Great. Awesome. Anybody else?
Also, to add to that, I was just going to say to definitely include it on your resume if it's years back, but maybe not have a summary attached. I'm a senior managing consultant, so I work directly with hiring managers. I'm not a recruiter. I have a team of recruiters that I work with. And so being able to have that one-on-one time with a hiring manager, those are things that I can address during that conversation. So that's why I know a lot of the recruiters shared that it's really important to be transparent when speaking with them, because these are the things that are really going to sell you to the manager when we're in front of them, but not necessarily does it have to be highlighted on your resume. If you have something that's years back that's relevant to the role, a lot of us are looking for relevant recent experience. So making sure that if you do have that in the roles that you've had within the last 3 years, make sure that that's highlighted on your resume, and include it in the tools section. Tools and skill sets is really important as well, to have a summary of that and how it's relevant to your recent experience. I think that's the most important.
Great. Awesome. Great. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit again, because we do have quite a few questions related to what are some top skills that you're noticing employers are looking for due to the pandemic. Are there softwares that are more popular than others? Like somebody mentioned, is Salesforce popular still? Like, what are some of those common technology skills that you're seeing that employers are asking for?
Kind of speak to the market. I mean, here in Austin, can you guys hear me? Okay. I would say like my number one request is always going to be like for Office, like Microsoft Office products, and having Excel skills is always a request from my clients. I feel like Excel never goes out of style, and then Microsoft Outlook is another one that we always are in demand for, I would say. even PowerPoint and Adobe. I know a lot of like creative professionals and a lot of my marketing professionals, they have their Adobe skills. It's always good to brush up on those, and they do have, I know my colleagues, mentioned earlier, there are a lot of like free classes online that you can take to just like brush up on those. Even YouTube, I would suggest those as well too. But I feel like Excel is kind of like my number one that I always go to.
Yeah, I echo Excel big time. Anyone who can do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, I am 1,000% calling them. I would also say a good something that bodes well for me is if I see lots of CRMs, Salesforce, HubSpot, a lot of like sort of entry to mid-level marketing software, like I'm trying to think, MailChimp, any sort of like email marketing. I mean, honestly, the more software, the better, really, because then somewhere along the line, I'm probably gonna have a job for them. So anyone who can kind of boast those skills or just show that they're brushing up on anything like that, I think you're definitely gonna be more attractive to recruiters.
And I think here in Chicago too, at least in the last couple weeks or so since this has been going on, most of the roles that I have been getting in have either been a customer service position or something strictly data entry, like a working from home project, because the client is backlogged with information that they need. Most of the time you don't have to have the exact database knowledge that they've had, but they definitely, I'm going to agree with everyone on the Excel piece of it, just because Excel will be similar to some of the softwares that are used, or a lot of my clients will want to see if someone's typing speed, how many words per minute, if it is going to be a data entry project. Those are usually the two things that they're going to ask for. And then with customer service, it honestly does come down to more so of just personality, phone presence, just if you've answered incoming calls before. So that one's not as, I guess, difficult, but I would say Excel, I agree with everyone.
Great, good.
And sorry, to jump into that might be helpful to our listeners is right now is a good time too, if you were unfortunately furloughed due to COVID-19, is to get letters of recommendation from your managers. That's very helpful. If we have letters, it's very helpful for me presenting them to the hiring managers. Any LinkedIn testimonial that they can write for you is also huge. So really just start reaching out to your network at your past employer and making sure that they're looking out for your best interest for future opportunities as well.
Great, awesome. Thank you guys. Those were all really, really helpful. We have a couple questions in here and we still have some time. So we have a couple questions about age discrimination. So what would you advise? I mean, it's kind of like a loaded question because, I mean, it doesn't, there are plenty of people that are over a certain age that are very comfortable with technology and don't really have this issue. But I think part of it too is if you are somebody over a certain age, even though you might have all these skill sets, an employer is still going to judge you if they go to like your LinkedIn profile and they see that you're older, right? So like, I guess that there's a lot of people in here that are just kind of looking for some advice or some empowering information in regards to what does somebody over the age of 50 do in this circumstance? And what should I look out for? How do I remain competitive compared to my, younger competition?
So I can speak a little bit about just age in general. So almost all employers, if not everybody, isn't technically an EEOC employer, meaning it's equal opportunity, and you cannot discriminate on certain things such as race, color, religion, sex, national origin, as well as age. That's a protected class for people over the age of 40. So you're not to discriminate against that if you are an employer. What I will say that you want to pay attention to if you are a job seeker looking for a job is the actual job description and what the requirements are. So if the job requires, I'll use Salesforce as an example, 5+ years of Salesforce experience, and on your resume, an employer can't see 5+ years of Salesforce experience, you might not get the call. And that's not because of an age thing, it's purely because of a skill set. So that's kind of back to what we spoke about before, really looking at the job description and matching your resume to it. And when you say 5+ years of experience, that means you can call somebody with 9 years of experience, with 20 years of experience, anything like that. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Great. We also have some questions around I guess there's like still some unclarity around what types of companies are hiring and the pay range. So I mean, do you guys have some examples that you could share of like specific companies and other industries or that are hiring, and also what the pay range is that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I think we can speak to like at least the industries for sure. In New York, I would say the larger financial services or mid-sized services companies are the ones that my team has specific openings with on the permanent side for administrative, at least right now. And I think it's because those companies have been impacted by COVID, but not as harshly as, you know, a hospitality or entertainment sector. And they're still able to completely operate remotely with their staff. So I would say those are definitely in New York City, the biggest ones that I'm seeing hiring. Also mid-size, because what I found is with my clients, the ones that are still actively able to interview and maybe have the ability to create a whole onboarding experience remotely are the ones that have a dedicated recruiting team. So if they have a department within their company that has recruiters, that's the only part of their job day in and day out. Some of the smaller companies where, let's say, I might be working with the office manager or the founder of the firm, they have bigger things going on right now that hiring someone who's the bottom of their list. So I would say if you're going to target companies to that size is a good thing to look at. And then also to just what we were going back to saying before, think of the industries that are in need right now. Healthcare. So what companies are focused on that, like maybe technology, things along those lines. But I can at least speak to New York as being, you know, financial services is still seems to be going pretty strong. I don't know if others want to add another market.
Yeah, I can speak to just, you know, a little bit about, I know salary and like hourly rate was brought up as well. On the temp side of things, and I think this is just great for people to know, our employees are W-2 employees versus 1099. And I think that's something I hear from entertainers and creatives in general, that they're very thankful for that because the appropriate taxes are taken out throughout the year and they don't need to allocate for the end of the year. They're paid an hourly rate, which is typically not determined by us. Basically what happens is that we charge our clients a bill rate, and that bill rate is the cost to both pay an employee as well as employ an employee. So say that a client laid you off because of COVID, the unemployment would technically go back to Beacon Hill instead of our client. So we handle all of that. It's the payroll costs. A question we get a lot of times is based off of, do we offer health benefits? Yes, we do. After temping for a certain amount of time, you have to qualify for them. You know, all the costs that we have to employ you goes into that. And there's a range dependent on the type of role. And it's typically about the type of experience the role needs. I'll give an example on the admin side. A receptionist in New York City, minimum wage is $15 an hour, might make on a short-term assignment anywhere between 15 to 17, versus an executive assistant might be at anywhere between 20 to 25. Now, if you add something on top of there, like the timeline, like somebody's temping for 3 or 4 months, you might see the hourly rate increases because you're committing more time. And anytime you work over 40 hours in a week, you're paid on time and a half. Now, these things can differ dependent on the region that somebody's in. Obviously, minimum wage is different in all areas of the country. And then salaries, you'll see, also depend on the type of role. So if somebody goes permanent via temp to perm or direct hire, it would just depend on, a salary that we had submitted you for prior that we had discussed with the client.
Just to add to that piece too on the salary, a lot of people that I've been speaking with have been asking me like what salaries are looking like. I've not had any clients cut their budgets yet on any of the salaries. Like anything that they'd have budgeted that's still open is still paying what we started looking at the range for the search. I guess it's just up to you how flexible you want to be during this, and if you want to change the salary range that you want to look into open more doors. But at this point, I haven't seen anyone slash salaries in order to save money.
That's really encouraging to hear. Kevin?
Yeah, that a little bit with I've been seeing a lot of questions kind of pop up about like recruiter fees and things like that. We're a free service to the public, so we don't charge like a percentage of your salary or anything like that whenever you sign up with us or whenever we find you a position. You just you get a normal paycheck, W-2 employee, as we mentioned earlier, and we pay weekly, so every Friday is payday and everything. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely no fee to the job seeker. So just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, super, super important. I think a lot of people actually shy away from reaching out to recruiters because they might think like, oh, I gotta pay a fee. I know that I'm probably gonna have to pay a fee for this, but in reality, you really don't have to pay any recruiter for the most part a fee. This has been great. We're almost out of time, and I'm gonna ask the last question, which is the golden question. How does somebody get in touch with you? Now, I know that everybody could go to the Beacon Hill Staffing website to search for jobs that they're interested in apply, and that works for all of your different cities. But the other question is, are you guys on LinkedIn, and would it be okay for people to find you on that platform and reach out to you directly on LinkedIn? That would be great. I see some head nods. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Great. So actually, everybody, if you are still on this call, you have everyone's name already because it's on the public calendar. It was in your Eventbrite invitation. So it looks like that they are all more than happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. So don't forget to send your little private message to let them know that this is where you met them, right? So thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you again for providing the performing arts and entertainment professionals on this call with information on how to best understand the current world of recruitment. We deeply appreciate your sound advice and hope to remain connected to you as new information related to our economy unfolds. And finally, thank you to all of you who joined us from around the country. We appreciate all you do to contribute to our country's cultural vibrancy and promise to continue our work towards ensuring each of you are supported, valued, and economically secure. Have a great day, everyone. This was so fun. I hope that you guys stay healthy and safe and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.